Tom from Tom's Toons here. This is a 1991 Lowe Pontoon. This is one of those projects that when we're done with it, you're not going to recognize it as this boat at all. This is the original railing. It's a fishing style, kind of a fishing cruise style with the lower railings in front and back. By the time this video comes out, you will be able to order the new railing kits from pontoonstuff.com. Use Tom's Toons, all one word, at checkout to save 5% off your order. Big savings when you're doing a big railing kit that's going to update your boat like this one. We walk around the backside. This was kind of an old classic design. We covered the motor because it's a big, stinky 60-horse two-stroke. This motor's going, and it's getting a brand new 60-horse command thrust Mercury, 4-stroke, fuel-injected, awesome engine. The back of the boat will look a little bit different with the door out the back, and a swim ladder, and a sun deck. Let's hop inside so you can see what this boat looks like now and give you a good idea of how it's going to compare to when we're done with it. One of the first things you're going to notice is that these are deckmate seats. So in the back and the front, somebody at one point used deckmate seats from pontoonstuff.com to redo at least part of this boat. The carpet's probably not original either, but it's going in the spots where it's been used the most. Looks like it's going to peel up pretty easy. At least we have that going for us. This live well is going to go so we can open up some space in the front. We'll stay with 2 fishing chairs up in the front, but then the back will transition into more of our traditional layout with our bench, L bench with a sun deck cushion. So this little table storage area will go. We'll have a lean back, some couches coming around. This couch is in an awkward place. That's going to go. We're going to have a fishing seat behind the captain's chair, just a removable one. We'll do a new helm, new captain's chair, and lots of bells and whistles on this boat too. Out with the old, in with the new, and this old dirty carpet and all the old components, they're going. Stay tuned. This one is going to be one you won't recognize. Boat is pretty much stripped of the railings and the seats. Here's something I do. I still have to uninstall the steering, the controls, and the electrical. I like to leave the captain's chair in until the very last second. That way I have somewhere to sit. I can pull that control box out of the dash, set it in my lap to disconnect all of the control cables. The other thing I have yet to do here is this is a 2-cycle motor. It's oil injected, so this is an oil tank, an oil reservoir that feeds the motor. So this has to come out. We'll plug that line. I usually cut it close to the motor, and I plug the end on the motor side as well as the hose that's coming from the tank. It's not a quick connect. You have to actually cut it. So we'll plug that and do the best we can to keep it clean. But this is how dirty those old 2-strokes. There's just oil and crud everywhere. So we'll pull this stuff out. I'm going to yank the motor off in just a second here. And then we'll get to tearing the rest of this down and get this boat stripped to the aluminum today yet. I would normally tell you, if you have a red steering cable, just start over, get a new steering cable. But if you have cracks in a steering cable, whether it's red or black sheathed, get rid of it. It's garbage. Water's gonna get in there. Steering's gonna lock up on you. It's easier to do it now when we're tearing the boat apart than it will be later. This is gonna be one of those boats that in order to take your steering cable out, you will have to unbolt the motor. Pain in the neck. If you were doing this boat, you were just restoring the deck and not touching the motor. In order to get this deck trim off and everything else properly to get the wood on, you're gonna have to pull the steering cable. And in order to do that, because of this tight space here and the lack of bendability, that's the word I'm gonna use, you're gonna have to pull the motor, unhook the cable from this side, slide that out, and then you'll be able to unhook. So you might as well just take the motor off completely, finish everything, and the last step, put the motor back on and rehook everything. So just keeping that in mind, but we got to redo the transom anyway. This is all rotten, a little dry rot in there. So we're going to take care of that. But this is getting a new motor, so that simplifies things too. you might be reusing your motor, but doing a new console, two options. You're either gonna unhook all of your electrical and stuff at the helm and remove your shift throttle box, or you can unhook it from the motor. In this case, because we're pulling the motor, I unhooked everything at the motor, lifted the motor off, and now I've freed up everything underneath, and I should be able to just pull my control box. It has my ignition harness right in with it. Should be able to just pull this all out. I am gonna have to unhook my trim gauge separately, but that's one way to get it all out. And you could just reinsert everything back down through, hook it up at the motor. Just depends on your preference, what you're more comfortable with. Here's one of those notes that we like to make because in the big world of the internet, this is the most debated topic, I think, in the world. This is the original plywood. This is from 1991. This is green plywood. This is treated plywood. It's actually in pretty okay shape. You know, some of the spots that were wet and dry or the carpet peeled, those were starting to go. I'm pretty sure at some point somebody put new carpet on to go with the spiders. But as we look at the spider here, this plywood's been on these cross members for 30 plus years. This is the corrosion. This little white dust, this little white residue, that's the corrosion that people claim will destroy character, will destroy your cross members. They'll eat it away. This is 30 years of wet and dry green CCA treated plywood or pressure treated plywood. That's the reaction that happened. There's nothing compromising the structure of this. So we're going to obviously clean that off the best we can. We'll wire brush it off, and then we'll put new CCA treated plywood on top. That's just really good proof of what happens after 30 years of treated plywood. This is fresh water. We're in the Great Lakes here on inland waters, but that's the worst that happens. This is about the worst I've ever seen it, just in terms of that dust, that corrosion. So keep that in mind when you're working on your boat. You're not going to see this very often. This is actually only the second boat I've ever done that has this type of cross member. The C-channels, if we go, this is a non-seam here. It's just a standard C-channel. When you come to the seam, there was no hardware in the seam because this is a T-channel cross member. So essentially this is how I know this is factory plywood, is because from the factory, they actually had that layer of plywood, the top layer, taken right off, and they must have slid these boards in the whole way, especially on the seams. But what I'm going to do to battle this, I'm not going to take a layer of plywood off. It's not necessary. We have the hardware to make it work without doing this. Don't ask me why they did it. It's just an extra step. All the pontoon companies want to do something new and different and better, but they don't do this now in these days, this day and age. So obviously it wasn't the best way to do it. What I'm going to do is take my angle grinder, and I'm going to go in on the top side, and I'm just going to run it all the way, and I'm going to cut this T right off, so I'm left with just a piece of C-channel. It's a little tedious, an extra step for sure, but it's the only way to get these boards out, because that's not budging. Yes, I could take a circular saw and rip down the middle and then lift one side out and pull it, but I'm gonna cut these off anyway, so I might as well just get it going right now. The boat is all torn down, and in case you're thinking, gosh, it's so easy, just tear them apart, slap them back together. Not always the case, not usually the case. Cut all these flush, ground them down, make sure they're nice and flat for a seam to sit on. But we're moving on to the back of the boat. Before we deck it, I'm gonna slide the transom back, and luckily in this case, there's extra holes here, so all I need to do, I'm gonna pull the transom board out, make it a lot lighter, and then these three cross members, 1, 2, 3, will slide back. They'll position into the holes. We'll get rid of these back little guys. And then I'm gonna add this piece. I had a scrap piece, some big heavy 1/4-inch walled 2x2 that's gonna just reinforce. I'm gonna bolt it together with this last cross member, and then it'll also bolt into the transom. And that's gonna add a ton of strength to the transom because we're putting on about the same weight motor, 260-pound 4-stroke. But that's just gonna beef everything up. And then I've got a piece of tube. This is the closest thing, best option that the local metal yard had. That will go here because this is all sliding back. I'm gonna get to work on this. I'm wearing a hood and a vest and a sweatshirt because it's like 50 degrees in here. Normally it's like 70, maybe not that warm, but close. Heater's been out all week, but we gotta keep working. Transom's out. This thing probably weighs, I don't know, 30 pounds of soggy, wet plywood. So this is 2 inches thick. So to recreate this is a little tricky. We'd either have to sandwich some plywood and aluminum. I'm thinking I might just go ahead and weld in some 2-inch. I'm gonna go see if I have the tube left. I have some real heavy duty 1/4-inch walled. I could go right across here. It's 4 inches tall, so I could make it a lot of weld. This is nice beefy material, like 3/16 here. Plenty strong, and it's the same stuff I used on my 140 horse for my jet boat. I'm gonna go see if I got that. Otherwise, we can recreate a wood transom if we need to. Spent a good part of the day yesterday getting this transom done. So we took the old wood piece out, that's over here, and put in some heavy duty. This is 1/4-inch walled 2x4 aluminum tubing, big extruded stuff. So what we'll do is we'll template this out, drill the new holes. That's gonna hold the new motor a lot better for the long run than the wood that was on that, or even replacing it with wood, because it's a 2-inch place to fill. If it was the 1.5, which is 2 sheets of plywood glued together, that's one thing. But this you could do at home, I suppose, if you wanted to run a couple bolts through aluminum tube. But we got the welder out and beefed it up with the welder, and that's not going anywhere. Gusseted the front corners as well. So pretty heavy duty. I'm happy with how it turned out, and it's going to be a lot stronger than wood for the long run. So now I've got to get to getting this transom moved back, and as you can see, there's a little, hard to see from this angle. If you look here, you'll see that stronger, this is a nice straight new piece of 2x2 C-channel that's 1/4-inch walled. That's straight. This old cross member, the last one, has a little sag to it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move this transom back right now, get it in the position I want it, and then I'm gonna add this structural piece into the last cross member, probably go just in front of it. And that way I'll have it beefed up. I'll bolt those two together in a few places, and that way we'll get some of that structure back, add a lot of strength to the whole thing too. And if you've seen some of our videos in the past, this is probably the fastest and most efficient way to modernize your boat, because this used to have a big cutout. We're getting rid of that and slide everything back so I can make the deck straight across the back, and we get all that floor space back. It's super important to maximize what you've got out of a 20-foot boat like this. We've got the transom slid back. So if you look at this, the cross member here used to be up here. That's a big jump forward. That was 24 inches. We slid it back, everything lined back up. I only had to drill one new hole through here. That was it. So pretty minor in terms of what I had to do. And then I added this big beefy cross member, ties in across, and then we basically made it an I-beam. If you look up at the hardware, there's 3 spots that we glued it together into an I-beam here. Again, this was a piece that I had left over. Didn't need it to run all the way out to the end because we have it anchored where it needs to be. And it is a stout little piece of aluminum. I like that a lot in terms of what it's gonna add to the strength of this transom, putting the 250-pound, 260-pound motor on it. That's it. all wrapped up with the transom. All I have to do is bolt in this piece of tube across. That'll just make a new floor joist. It won't even be a seam, but we're gonna put that in and we're good. Converted this from the old, outdated, rotten transom to something that's gonna last forever and give us the layout that we need for this boat. The thing that I love about projects like this is that we get to take an old boat that had a layout that was popular way back when, and we get to update it, and we get to A, make it more useful in terms of the layout, how this customer wants to use their boat, and B, we get to make it stronger than it ever was. So we get to make this boat better, because I'll tell you what, I could go on for days about how, I don't want to say poorly, but cheaply, minimally, boats are built, pontoon boats. It drives me insane. So whenever I can beef them up, make them better and last longer, I'm super happy. What I do is I get my vinyl still in the packaging up on the deck. I'm on the front of the boat. I'm gonna roll it back to the back of the boat. And I go ahead and I orient it. I've cut this open just so you can see, so that the floor, the edge that's peeling up or is gonna pull out, that's facing the back of the boat. So what I'll do is take I usually start with a fresh razor every time I do this, but I'm gonna run my finger, you can see it's overlapped right here. So what I'm gonna do is just keep my finger right on the overlap, and I'm gonna cut on the high side of the plastic, and that's gonna allow me to take the plastic off without hurting anything. If I do get into the flooring at all in the package, it's just gonna be on the last ½ inch, and I'm not gonna use that anyway. So I cut this back the whole way. I'm gonna go ahead and cut it from the other side all the way down, and then I'll be able to unroll it. So I can open that whole thing of flooring up, and now when I unroll it, it'll pull right off of this plastic, and I'll do the whole length of the boat. This is always easier with 2 people, but Corey called in sick today, so she's a little under the weather. I'm here on my own. I pulled the end that was on top of the packaging, pulled that out. Now I'm just gonna grab this and just work it back. With 2 people, we can get on each side and just walk along the boat and unroll it. When I'm by myself, it's a little less efficient, but I get it done anyway, just pulling that roll back to where it's flat on the whole boat. Keep in mind, this is about 20 foot by 8 foot wide. So this flooring is the same flooring you're gonna get for an 8 or an 8.5 foot wide boat. What I'm gonna do is just measure and make sure that I have the same amount of overhang. Usually ends up somewhere around 4 inches, 4.5 inches on each side. If it's an 8.5 foot wide boat, I might only have an inch or 2 on each side, but that's okay. So I'll do my best to square this up. I can cut off some of the excess, but I like to leave at least an inch of space on here. Then I can do a final trimming once we glue it down. So I'm gonna get this all lined up and ready for the glue. I've got that squared up really nice. So what I do is I measure the front and the back. On this side, it's right at 3.5 inches. I don't usually get that lucky, but this lined up right on the money. The other side is 4 inches in the back and 4 inches up in the front corner. So I know I'm square. So what I can do is trim off the little bit of excess on the front, a little bit of excess off the back. I'm gonna leave an inch of overhang still front and back, so that after I'm done gluing it, I can trim that out. But that gives me a little bit of play if for some reason I needed to move it ever again. I shaved off some of the excess, but as you can see, we've still got some overhang just in case. But typically it's not gonna move once we clamp front and back, peel it back and get it glued. It's usually not moving after that, but I like to leave it just in case. This boat's ready to get clamped and glued. So we're gonna get to work on that, and then we can get the furniture up and get this thing coming back together. This is the woven vinyl from pontoonstuff.com. This is the gray weave versus the gray teak. Both great options, really the same flooring other than the finish look on top. Use our coupon code, enter Toons, all one word, all caps, in your checkout at pontoonstuff.com, and you'll save 5%. Gives you big savings on a big purchase like a flooring kit, plywood, flooring, glue, hardware, all the works. Keep that in mind when you're shopping for flooring for your boat. Got the vinyl on the deck. It's sat for a day or two, so that glue is good and cured up. We're inside here. Needs to be above 65 degrees, so keep that in mind. Our next step, and this is an exciting part, is getting all these boxes. These are all seat bases, cushions, helm, everything is going up on the boat. We can get organized. It's an exciting part of the build or the restoration project because it's going to start to look a lot more like a boat. The railings will be here shortly, but you might find yourself in this exact same scenario. This is our next step after the vinyl is down. Get everything up on the boat, then deck trim, then we'll get to the railings. For the seats where we know that speakers are going to go in, this is the rear seat. It's a 28 corner. I have a little stencil here. It's a 5-inch diameter circle. So you can think about it like that. I'm going to line this up, space it out evenly from the bottom each side. Just so happens that it's a couple of my fingers width. And then I'm going to go ahead and trace this on. So you could make a 5-inch circle if you needed to as a stencil. I don't know how many I've cut out, probably hundreds of speakers with this. And then our cutting tool of choice is the Dremel. This is a plug-in. It's a Dremel tool, but it's the multi-cutting bit. It's like a $4 bit. You can get it at Home Depot, True Value, any hardware store. This is gonna cut right through. I'm gonna cut just on the inside of the line. I can always take a little more off if I need to. I'd rather play it safe. 2 hands on this the whole time. That way I can't run or wander. We're ready to put this up on the boat, and then the speaker will be ready to insert. But might as well do it while it's down off the boat, makes a mess on the floor instead of the boat. That's how we like to do it. This boat has been sitting here in this state for honestly a couple months now. This has been waiting on the railings, and yesterday afternoon they finally arrived. So actually we've had them on order since they released them on the website. We've got our railings for this boat, which is in the same position, and one more boat that's been sitting here for months as well. Today's a big day. It's Saturday. We had to get in and we got some time to make up because it's late February. I wanted these boats, 2 of them, out of here before February, well before February. So time to play catch up. Gonna work some long days. But right now, we're gonna unbox these railings. This is the first time that I've worked with the brand new railing kits. So they're a complete kit. You order them in sizes. I think 17, 18, 21, 22, and 3 inches. And then they keep going up from there for any size boat. This is the first time I've done the whole modular kit thing. So I'm gonna have some information to feed back to you on it. We're gonna do videos that cover the full install of these kits. But we're gonna start unboxing and start laying stuff out. Here we go.
Did you bring ketchup?
Did I bring ketchup? No, but I got mustard to play ketchup.
Yeah.
You should have asked, did you bring chicken fingers, chicken nuggets for the ketchup?
Banks, did you bring your ketchup? No.
Maybe River did?
Anything about cavitation you want to say?
Cavitation is the worst thing ever. Don't ever let it happen on your boat.
River, any ketchup?
No ketchup, but she's right about cavitation. So on a half-day Saturday, we got our seats mocked up. The railings, you can see the back enclosure. This will have a cover pad on it. And then walk it up to the front. That's that new deluxe helm. It's a beefy helm. So there's, takes up a good amount of space. A little bit of room to walk through. Pretty typical to be tight back there. But the customer's gonna come in on Monday and just make a couple adjustments if need be. Make sure that the layout, that seat obviously will go, but make sure the layout's gonna work for them. No door here. Might do another lean back facing forward, not sure. That's the main door they'll use. And then it's finding out the exact amount of front deck space that we need to have the trolling motor on the front and probably an anchor winch off this side. River's here hanging out with us. He's working hard. So that's where we got to today, kind of in mock-up mode. And then from here, things come together pretty darn quick. We start bolting stuff down and then running electrical. We are to the final stages of this restoration. Miss Holly is up finishing the seat covers. I'm about to climb underneath and tie up all the electrical under the deck and under the helm. Got to put some oil in the motor, test run that, but otherwise, this thing is just about wrapped up. We're gonna take you through it in just a second here. If Banks was in the beginning or parts of this video, look at how big she's getting. And look at how good of friends they are. She basically loves him and he tolerates her. But let's talk about this boat we just finished. We just completely wrapped up this 1991 Lowe Pontoon. This was an old pontoon, but it was in good shape. The pontoons are good size, 20-foot boat, just under by the time we put the deck on. This is the first boat that you're gonna see when we get to say you can officially go order these railings, this railing kit online. So let's take a peek at that first before we go in the boat. It has the more modern 30-inch radius corner, so just a wider radius corner is all that means. We did the gray vinyl weave flooring, LED navigation lights, LED docking lights into the rub rail in front here, stainless steel cleats, new deck trim, new corner caps, pretty much new everything on this boat. We were able to install a nice little used Minn Kota deckhand anchor. It's an anchor winch or anchor mate. And then on the other side, they do fish on this a lot, which had a lot to do with the layout. but we have a nice Minn Kota trolling motor. And we do little things like this on a lot of boats if they're a fishing style boat where we need a quick connect for the trolling motor. So this is just a quick plug-in. This little flap lifts up and you can plug that in right there, so all the wiring is under the boat, out of the way, nice and clean. If you're ever interested in stuff like this, little mounts, custom brackets, shoot us an email, let us know. Chances are we can weld one up for you for your trolling motor too. Let's go around to the back of the boat and show you what it did back there. Before we get to the back of the boat, we're going to show you this. It got a stern ladder, but they wanted to have a second way to get in the boat, so we also have a side ladder. Just quick, easy, movable, removable, sturdy ladder. So we have that installed through the side door in case the kids, I guess they like to run and jump off the front of the boat when it's anchored and the motor's off. And then they can swim right around to the side, climb up and just keep doing laps, get those kids tired. But in the back, we've got a heavy duty stainless stern ladder. These drop way down there, easy to get up on, in and out of the boat. On the back, if you're tubing or you're just jumping off the back for a swim, easy access there. The obvious huge upgrade here is a 60 horse command thrust or high thrust. It's a pontoon version of the 60 horsepower 4-stroke from Mercury. It runs really big propeller, actually runs the 90 and 115 horsepower gear case. So it just gives more of that torque. We rebuilt the transom to all aluminum, got a new steering kit. This boat is ready to be a lot quieter, smoother, cleaner, no more oil. Just turn the key and go with these fuel injected 4-strokes. It's a big addition to a project in terms of cost, but if your motor's on the fritz, I highly recommend at least price out the new 4-strokes. Let's go inside. We'll take a look at the seat covers and bimini first, and then we'll take everything off and show you how this wrapped up. We added for a swim mat, those floating foam mats. We have a couple spots on each side of the front door where a bungee could go around, lay the mat on the front, bungee it so it's out of the boat, out of the way. And on any boat, on the front door, we always do a latch. So this boat is gonna have a lot of little kids on it, but also trailering. It's a really good idea. Put that door latch on, extra safety measure, but it can't open, and the kiddos are gonna have a lot harder time opening this door too if you don't want them to. So we can undo that latch, lift in, and come on in. Let's take a peek. If you look behind me, this is the 8-foot wide, this is an 8-foot deck by 10-foot long bimini top from Pontoon Stuff, the heavy duty version. It's got an LED stern light on the back. Super beefy, lots of coverage. If you've got little ones, this is a great option because it gives you more shade and more of the boat versus the 8x8, which is a little smaller but isn't gonna cover as much space. We have a seamstress who works in-house here with us on boats. She does these custom snap-on seat covers, something that we offer, but there are options for seat covers from Pontoon Stuff as well. These are just a full-blown set of custom snap-ons. I'm gonna pull these off and show you what's inside the boat. This bimini top stows back really easily. I like to just undo the fronts, come to the back and just fold it back, stack my bows, and then the boot cover can go right on top of that, tidies it up nicely. This customer opted for the premium seating from Deckmate from pontoonstuff.com. This is the navy blue with charcoal with the gray base color. And up front, to start things off, instead of just doing simple fishing seats, they opted for a low back helm chair. And really nice about this, we can swivel around. It's a really heavy duty pedestal. We can fish in comfort, we can cruise. But also, if you want to be part of the party conversation, you can sit here. If you got room, you could kick your feet up over here. A lot of options for these front seats as an upgraded fishing chair. So we have matching in the front. And then we have a pretty unique layout the rest of this boat. The conversation about this boat was you couldn't go to the boat show and find a factory boat that had this type of layout that's going to give this family what they want for their kids and grandkids between fishing, cruising, water sports, everything. We've got a 38-inch bench seat here with a fully upholstered lean back, fully vinyl lean back seat. Right behind it, tons of storage under all of these. So those seat covers stow right underneath with plenty of space for life jackets, towels, snacks, whatever you're going to stow in there. We have a movable cup holder. So the neat thing about this is if we need a cup holder here, which we do potentially, we have it. But if we want to get rid of it, it pulls right out and it's out of the way. Another bench on this side. We've got Deckmate speakers on each of those. 4 speakers in total on this boat. And as we come back, we got a little space in here. Rather than closing up, sometimes closing that space works for you, but in a lot of cases, leaving even just a 10-inch space like this is a great place for a bag of towels, dry clothes, something that you might need, a snack bag, just to get stuff out of the way. Having that little extra floor space is a big help. That side entry door is right in front of the console here. We got a big 55-inch bench seat into a 28 corner and a 28 bench seat. And then in the back, keep in mind, this is the new railing kit, but we had to do some modifications because we've been working on this boat for long before those railing kits were available online. It does have a sun deck. The sun deck is a little smaller so that we had more room to maximize the 20 foot of deck space on this boat. We have a 12-gallon fuel tank in here. It's actually in the center. This way they can get on the boat and fill from inside the boat with a 5-gallon refill tank, and it allows us to run a fuel gauge as opposed to a portable tank. Our battery is on this side, but we got plenty of room back there for storage, for life jackets and everything else. We also added kind of a unique feature. We've got an extra fishing seat in the back, but this works really well kind of as a continuation of this bench. It's on a removable pedestal, so if we want to take it out and clear the way for the stern, we can just lift this seat right out of the floor, take it off the boat, or it'll fit stowed in the back under the sun deck. And now we have access to that stern entry door and the swim ladder. So really neat if we're packing people on, we need the extra seating, or somebody wants to be fishing out of the back of the boat, they've got this seat available. If we want to play in the water, we can take that seat right out, and we've got a more open floor plan. Reclining helm chair here, and this combination of a triangle table and the helm chair is really nice for that stern entry. If you're doing a stern entry kit on your pontoon, triangle table gives you that flow through. Again, reclining helm chair, this is the most comfortable option out there. We can recline, kick back. You can sit up. If we got a little one driving the boat, they might need to sit up. They can slide forward on this pedestal, so you can sit close to the wheel. This is a hugely upgraded dash here. So we have the carbon fiber gauge and switch panel. We did a whole video on installing this. We have a Deckmate stereo on the side, and we talk about this. Most of the time the captain's not picking the music, at least the boat that I'm on usually. So this is just easy access for somebody to come up, connect their phone, and play music. Check the description for all of our discount codes for the different brands that we work with, including pontoonstuff.com. Will save you 5% on your whole order. Just enter Tom's Toons at checkout. This console is a standard console. It's got all the gadgets. We've got all of our lighting, navigation lighting, docking lights. We've got interior LEDs in the front and the back. They're each on their own switch, so if we need a little lighting in the back to get out the back door, we can, or up front, or both. And then we have switches to power our fish finder, a little Garmin unit here, our stereo, and then our USB and USB-C chargers, little plugins there. These all have their own breakers. Everything's set, ready to go. Turn the key on, our gauges power up. We've got a tachometer. We did opt for a fuel gauge in place of the depth finder here, voltmeter and a speedometer. It's a GPS enabled speedometer with an hour meter on it as well. And then that cool add-on that we did on this console, if you want a binnacle mount, this topside control box, we added, this is I think it's $59.99 to add this compartment, and we can slide that in to have our control box on, so I can comfortably drive here, have my shift and throttle off to the side because there's no room otherwise on this standard console. Really like how this all came together. This was the first time that we tried that. Oh, great. That's a wrap on this boat. We're gonna take it home, get it on the water for this season. Thank you for watching. Thank you for following along on this project.